NASCAR has denied telling spotters they cannot talk about the playoffs with their drivers. Wrote this up over at stockcarreport.com. You can find the link in the description below. So if you don't know exactly what is going on, Freddie Kraft, the host of the Door Bumper Clear podcast, as well as Bubba Wallace's spotter, made the claim that spotters are not allowed to talk to their drivers about the playoffs. He said this on the most recent episode of Door Bumper Clear, saying, "We are no longer allowed to mention the word points as a spotter, as a team. I know some teams did it. God bless them. They got away with it. But on Saturday, it was a playoff driver that was in no threat of losing his position, asked his spotter, what's the playoffs look like? What's going on? And the spotter simply read the standings. This one's out by 35. This one's out by 25. This one's out by 10. This one's out by 5. The cut line is pretty tight, whatever. No directions, no anything. Just read the standings. And he got a warning from NASCAR. Do not talk about the point standings. When asked why by co-host Carson Elledge, Kraft explained because they don't want race manipulation. And for good reason, right? If you remember, at Martinsville, massive race manipulation from multiple teams and manufacturers. We saw Bubba Wallace completely tank at the end of the last lap of the race, so Christopher Bell could get around him, get an extra point. We saw collusion with Austin Dillon and Ross Chastain with the Chevy drivers. They literally formed a moving wall behind William Byron to ensure that he would maintain a sixth place finish and stay at least 1 point ahead of Christopher Bell in the playoffs. I think Brad Keselowski was behind that wall, and he basically was unable to get around anyone and advance his position during the race. I thought it was absolutely embarrassing at the time that they were engaging in this. I think it was clearly a mark against this playoff format that I think encourages this. And NASCAR is obviously trying to stop this from happening again. And that is exactly kind of what they said when they denied Freddie Kraft's claim here. In the most recent episode of Hauler Talk, Senior Director of Racing Communications Amanda Ellis was asked about Kraft's comments. Specifically, this was the question. Someone is saying that spotters were told by Martinsville, that someone is Freddie Kraft, that they couldn't talk about the points at all aside from listing them. Amanda, can you address that? Can you confirm or deny? Did NASCAR tell spotters after Martinsville last year they can't tell drivers in cutoff races about the points? And this was her answer. Nay, no. That's a great question. To my knowledge, there was no formal communication to spotters following Martinsville that told them they could not talk about points. It did come up during the Xfinity race on Saturday, where two specific teams were warned during some of the conversations that they were having, and NASCAR communicated to them via the IM chat capabilities that we have. IM being instant messenger, basically. Think of Facebook Messenger, text messaging, whatever. Right? Whatever app you use to communicate, they basically have their own version of that, or they're probably using Microsoft Teams or Slack or something like that, that they work with the teams or like that. Anyways, she goes on and says, and they were just given a warning that if the points didn't have to do with them, their specific car and vehicle, we did not want to see them talking about points. And I think to kind of take that one step further, it's not a message of you can't talk about points. It's more a message of if you're talking about points, it should be about your car and your vehicle and not other vehicles that are in play. So clearly trying to prevent what happened last year at Martinsville, where you had other teams talking about other cars and obviously giving instructions to their drivers in order for them to make decisions on how they should race in order to help the driver that they want to help get into that next round of the playoffs. We got some more information from Managing Director of Racing Communications, Mike Ford, as well. This is what he added. At the time, it was at the very beginning of the race. No matter what moves Team A or B did, it would not have affected anything. There was at no point where we were like, this is questionable, this is problematic. But we wanted to get ahead of it with the teams in question and just say, hey, if this is at the end of the race and you're still doing this, it's not going to be good for anybody, because if you talk about points and then have some actions that are questionable, 1 + 1 is always going to equal 2 here, and then you're going to be in hot water. So I actually applaud NASCAR for doing this. I think this is what they need to be doing. They need to be proactive. They need to be really acting as officials and saying no is no, ensuring that these teams do not engage in this unsportsmanlike and unethical conduct. I think it does extreme detriment to the sport. I said that last year after Martinsville. I thought it was just embarrassing what happened. I think it kind of took away from the whole point of racing, trying to do your best, trying to win, trying to win, like you're trying to win, best driver, best car, best team, best mechanic, best engineer, etc. That's what you're trying to prove. And I don't think we saw that at all with all the racing manipulation that took place. With all of that being said, I'm sure you can predict what I'm going to say here, but this is due to the playoff format. If you did not have this playoff format with the cut lines where they're at with these specific races leading into a next round and you're eliminated, you wouldn't have this problem. This is a problem of NASCAR's own creation. And so if you had even if you had a 10 race chase, I don't think you have this problem because they would all be trying to do their best over the course of those 10 races. You wouldn't be seeing someone just like Bubba Wallace tanking it on the last lap to get Christopher Bell one more spot like that. It wouldn't really it's unlikely that would actually matter, right, in the big picture of the 10 races. But that being said, I still think that they should be going to a full season championship. I think that's what should be the standard in motorsports, and I think that's what NASCAR should go back to. And in fact, I think there are a plethora of reasons why you should do that. I think you can just look at the history. What happens when you have a guy who is dominant? You get Richard Petty, you get the King, you get Dale Earnhardt Sr., you get icons of the sport. Like, is the NBA where the NBA is today without Michael Jordan and the Bulls being absolutely dominant? No, it's not. You want drivers to be dominant. You want to see someone who is the best of the best. And we don't really have that. I don't. And I think the playoff format is obviously a detriment to that. Now, obviously, this car is a problem with that as well, etc. There's a lot of other factors that go into that, but I definitely think the playoff format is one of those. But anyways, with that being said, I do like what NASCAR is saying here. I like what Mike Ford is saying. I like what Amanda Ellis is saying. They're getting out in front of this. I see no problems with how they were treating this. I actually 100% agree with what Amanda is saying. The message is, if you're talking about points, it should be about your car and your vehicle and not other vehicles that are in play. And I think that is a good and clear message that NASCAR is giving to the teams, to the drivers, to the spotters. They do not want them manipulating the race. And I think that is one way that they are going about doing it. Now, that being said, I think the teams are still going to try to find ways to do that. I think that they're going to be pushing the boundaries, and NASCAR has to come in. They have to be the strict dad, and they have to tell the teams, the drivers, no, this is unacceptable. And when teams and drivers do indeed kind of push that boundary, step over that boundary, they have to come down hard on them and issue them significant penalties in order to try to send the message even harder. Because it's not just about telling them no, because sometimes if you're a parent, you know this, the kid, your child isn't always going to listen to you when you say no, and you have to take disciplinary action against them. And I kind of see that here in what NASCAR has to do and the message that NASCAR is sending here. But let me know what you guys make of this. Let me know in the comments below.